Hi y'all, it's Bradley the Singing Chef again. So my very first video, we made buttermilk biscuits. And you didn't think I was just gonna let you have biscuits for breakfast. I mean, true confessions, I probably have done that. However, today we're gonna make another of my favorite recipes. It is a sausage hash brown casserole for breakfast. Now this is a great recipe because you can make it ahead, you can put it in your fridge the night before, and then when you wake up, you can just throw it in the oven and it is good to go. All right, let's get started. So I've got a pan over here heating up to about medium-high heat or so, and I have frozen hash browns, the shredded potato kind that I'm using. Now you could just shred regular potatoes and that's perfectly fine. However, the bagged kind is totally an easy cheat. You're gonna wanna break it up as much as you can. Like sometimes it has clumps like this. So, you know, do your best to break it up. The heat of the pan is gonna do the majority of that work for you. So we're gonna take some cooking oil. It can be canola oil, vegetable oil, whatever you've got. And put about, I'd say, 2 tablespoons of that. What we're basically gonna do is we're going to cook these frozen hash browns as the instructions on the bag say. So in batches, about half of the portion at a time to cover the bottom of the pan. Let's see if that's going to be crazy. Yeah, not too bad. So you're going to put about half the bag in the pan at a time. And all we're looking to do is really just brown these like the packaging says. Get as much in here as I can for the first go round. Alright, that's a good portion of that. I'm going to take my spatula, spread it around. Hopefully those clumps will break down with the heat fairly quickly. Sorry for the noise as I try to chop them a little bit. Let's take it a minute. All right, now as that's going, I'm going to attempt to multitask, so bear with me. Next thing you're going to want, as those are cooking down for you, is to do a dice on an onion. So you're going to want to cut off this sort of root-ish end, the longer end, off the top. This is my trash bowl. Normally I just have my trash can, but this is what I'm going to put all my scraps in for the day. Then I'm going to turn that flat surface over of the onion, and I'm going to cut right down the middle of the other end of the onion. Okay? Should be able to now from the flat end peel away that top layer fairly easily to get ready for your dice. Don't, again, claim to be a chef, but it's just tricks that I've learned over time of cooking and watching other chefs on TV do things. The easiest way to dice an onion. Go ahead and peel both halves. So the second half is ready to go. Now, when I cook, you're going to find like a lot of the recipes have the same 3 basic ingredients in them. This one has 2 of those 3. My favorite ingredients that I think are huge flavor builders are onions, garlic, and butter. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the onion that we're going to dice, we're going to put our hand flat on the top so you're safe, slice through the side of the onion almost down to that root end that's still attached, okay? Then you're going to take the onion and just slice through all the way back towards that root again, and then turn it to the side and dice. Not too difficult. If you've been in the kitchen before more than others, You may already know how to do this pretty easily. I've got a bowl here to put the onions in. Keeping an eye on my hash browns over here. They seem to be doing all right. This is the root end that's left. Toss that in your garbage bowl and keep going. So the reason that I wanted to do this, this is my second recipe, not just so that you didn't only have biscuits for breakfast, was there's a memory that's associated with this casserole. I told you before that I've had the privilege and honor of singing with the Voices of Liberty at Epcot at Walt Disney World. And every Christmas we have a rehearsal period to get ready for our Christmas period. We have, a few days of time with our director, just learning the material in a rehearsal room. But then we finally get to go to the rotunda right before we open for Christmas, which is usually right around Thanksgiving. And that's an early morning rehearsal in the rotunda of the American Adventure because we have to be there before the guests get there. So we're there really, really early in the morning, lots of bleary-eyed singers. And so my tradition has been, for the past few years, to bring this breakfast casserole to those rehearsals. Because like I said, we're all tired and groggy because single-digit AM is not a singer's friend, let's be honest. But anyway, I usually bring this casserole and a batch of biscuits to the green room for everyone to kind of munch on when we have a break in our rehearsal period. And it seems to be a big hit with them, so I wanted to share it with all of you. All right, so that's got our onion pretty much done. Get that in the bowl. And keep checking on these hash browns. So, yeah, these still need some more time. So I still got some clumps of frozen hash browns. Leave those going, and I'm going to actually add just a little bit more oil to the pan to make sure that they fry up the right way. Yeah, there's a sizzling one. Okay, so now we've got our onion chopped. The next thing I'm going to kind of multitask and do is mince a few cloves of garlic. Like I said, onions and garlic are two of my favorite flavor enhancers that I throw in most savory recipes when I'm making them, if I'm honest. All you got to do to peel these garlic is just take your knife and just press. A lot of chefs, like smack the garlic clove. I don't think that's necessary. As long as you just give it a good press, you'll hear it pop and release the peel pretty easily. Toss that in your garbage bowl. Let's get this other one. Great. Yeah, now those hash browns are doing a little bit better. Good. Peel off. Now see, the minute I told you that this was easy, the peel starts giving me fits. There it goes. Right. Garbage, garbage, garbage. Clove. One more little peel. So I'm just doing a couple of cloves of garlic. You can actually do, 2 or 3 depending on the size of the clove that you've got. So whatever you have on hand. Then I'm just going to curl my fingers under, do a quick mince straight through, get a little bit of root of the garlic clove, throw that away, come back through the other side just to get a rough mince. Like, it doesn't have to be the finest thing ever on these garlic cloves. I'm glad you decided to check out another video. I hope that this one you'll enjoy. I don't have much counter space here, unfortunately. And actually I've got this set up in my kitchen, sort of over on the side, because the kitchen space in that I normally use when I'm cooking, not on a camera, is actually a little bit more difficult to film, so thanks for bearing with me and my location. Alright, now we're cooking. As you see those hash browns start to kind of brown, you're going to want to flip them. If you've got some of those frozen clumps still in there, that's okay. Just leave them in a little bit longer to continue cooking down. And you should be alright. Flip that one over, maybe that'll help him out. Great. Alright, I'm just going to let these hash browns continue cooking, and once I've got all of those finished, again, I've got a second batch here in the bag. I'm going to add that over here to this bowl, and then we will continue with sauteing the onions and the garlic and getting to the sausage of it all. And thanks again for joining. We'll be right back. Alright guys, welcome back. Let's see what we've got going on. So, when we left off, I was still cooking off the frozen packaged shredded hash browns. You can see I've got those in a large mixing bowl over here. You can see they're kind of brown, getting a little crispy edges every now and then. That's flavor, so you definitely want that to crisp up a little bit. They don't have to be completely cooked the way you just have them on the side, but at least a little bit of color on those. As I cooked those, I added some salt and pepper along the way. I believe in seasoning every layer you can, so you get maximum flavor in your finished dish, in your finished casserole. So let me tell you what I've got going on over here. So the onion that we chopped earlier has been sauteing for a few minutes, starting to get kind of translucent, okay? Again, I added a little bit of salt to these onions that helps sweat them out and cook them a little bit faster. I'm going to add another pinch of salt and pepper to these onions. So again, more seasoning, more flavor. And then I'm going to add some dry mustard, okay? Approximately, I would say 1 to 2 palmfuls to these onions. Yep. Let's get that stirred in. So we season all those onions a little bit. Now I told you earlier this is a sausage-based casserole. And in my life, whenever my mom and I actually had sausage and biscuits growing up, whether it was through the drive-thru on the way to school in the morning or it was on the way to church on Sunday morning, she and I always got a sausage and biscuit. And to that biscuit and sausage, we always added yellow mustard. Sounds crazy, but trust me, just try it one morning. You might like it too, which is why I decided to add some mustard into this recipe in 2 places. The first is in the saute of the onions. Now that I got those pretty close to finished, I'm going to add my minced garlic, okay? Took a little time to mince those a little bit. I added a sprinkle of salt onto the garlic. Those crystals of the salt kind of help break down the mince even further, and so I always do that just as a habit. All right, toss in your garlic. Get that sauteing around. It does not take very long at all for garlic to cook, so that's why I added it towards the last minute. You don't want to add it with onions initially, or the garlic will burn and it gets bitter, and nobody wants bitter in life or in food. So, all right, I can smell that garlic and onions right now, sauteing away. That should be pretty good to go. I'll let that go for a little bit longer. Turn down the heat just a skosh. We used the same exact pan, actually, that we did the hash browns in. And in my pan, there was still a little bit of residual oil left over from trying to crisp up the edges of the hash browns. If you need a little bit more oil to just kind of coat the bottom of the pan barely, you don't need a layer of it to do these, but if you need a little bit more, that's okay to add some oil before you put the onions in the pan to saute. All right, I feel like these are in a pretty good spot. So that pan of onions and garlic, which has been salted and peppered, goes into the same bowl as the hash browns that you cooked earlier. Again, I'm all about I don't really like washing dishes if I'm honest, so I try to use the same pan and bowl for recipes whenever I can so that there's less kitchen to clean when I'm done making all the mess. All right, so I mentioned that this is a hash brown and sausage casserole. This recipe calls for a pound of mild and a pound of hot breakfast sausage. Okay, now here in Orlando, it's actually kind of a rainy day out there. You may hear some thunder and stuff as I'm videoing this. I've been in Orlando for a long time, but I actually grew up in Tennessee. The reason I mentioned that is the brand of, and these people do not pay me anything to say this, it's just my preference and how I grew up. In my household, we always had Tennessee Pride brand breakfast sausage. They make mild and hot. You can find those in most grocery stores. And what we're going to do is we're going to saute both pounds of sausage in that very same pan. You do not need to add any extra oil at this point because there's going to be quite a bit of fat that comes out of the sausage itself. In fact, we're going to use a colander later on to drain that. So squeeze that roll of hot breakfast sausage in your pan. Get all the goodness out of that package. Toss that in the garbage bowl. Take your mild sausage packet. Same story. Squeeze that package. And everything out. Now, you may have noticed that from the hash browns to the sauté of onions, I switched to a wooden spatula. I just prefer that. It helps me break up the sausage. That's why I switched utensils on you. You're just going to want to kind of chop through this. Whoop! That hot sausage has a kick that's going to come off that hot pan, so be careful. I'm just going to break this up as much as I can to make a flat layer in the bottom. And you do want to mix the mild and the hot together. And then this is just going to need to saute for quite a while until it is browned all the way through. Because the last thing you want is raw pork. Now, this casserole is going to bake in the oven, but you really do want this sausage to cook completely through before you throw it in the mix of everything. All right. Now that I've kind of got a flattened layer in the pan, I'm going to kind of let that go for a while. Once it starts cooking and browning, it's a lot easier to kind of chop up into a crumble, which is the state that you really want the sausage to be in. So, while that is going, let's talk about the next step. I've got to reach into my counter here. Which is we're going to make an egg custard to go over the top of all the ingredients once they're in the baking dish, okay? And all an egg custard really is eggs and either milk or cream. I prefer using cream. I just think it's tastier. It's closer to butter, which we already know that I love. So I usually use heavy whipping cream, and we're going to crack 6 whole eggs. I usually buy extra large eggs, but you know, whatever you've got on hand will work just fine. Now, you would think I did that on purpose. Dropped a little shell in there. If you get a little speck of shell in your glass bowl, which is why I'm doing this in a separate bowl rather than the bowl I'm going to actually mix up in, you'll take a large piece of shell and dip it into the egg. It'll actually grab that tiny little fleck of shell, which is usually a nightmare to get if you're trying with your fingers or a fork or a spoon or something. So, helpful hint for clumsy people like me. I also find that you get less of those little flecks of shatter if you crack your egg on the flat surface rather than like on the edge of a bowl. I know I see a lot of chefs do that, but for me I find that it's far easier to crack the egg if you crack it on a flat surface like that. And you get way less shells. All right, our sausage is cooking away. So I'm going to get a head start on just poking through the yolks of these eggs with this whisk and give them a good scramble. Now, the next step is 2 cups of either milk or cream. I'm using cream, as I said, which is why I did this in a glass measuring cup. I can kind of see where my 6 eggs have landed, and I'm just going to go 2 cups higher than that, past where that liquid is right now. So that's 1, and 2. Yeah. All right. Take a look over at my sausage. Oh yeah. So yeah, you can see, and I hope you can see, the pieces I'm turning have already started to brown on the bottom. So you can just kind of give those another zhuzh in the pan to keep crumbling. And again, you're looking to get to a brown color, no pink at all. In this sausage, you really do want to cook it all the way through. Right, get that flattened out again. And let her go for a little while longer. All right, so like I said, I like seasoning every step of the way. I'm going to season this mixture of cream and egg that I've got going on over here, which again, I'm going to cheat. Give it a little quick scramble together before I add anything else crazy to it, because I don't want it sloshing out of the bowl, mainly. All right, I'm going to add a heavy pinch of salt, because it's quite a bit of cream and egg. I'm going to add some black pepper. Ooh, almost lost my pepper out there. All right. Another sort of half palm of the dried mustard that we used before with the onions. Just about that much. And then, because again, just my personal preference, and it's the way I make this casserole, and I hope that you'll try it and see if you love it. Mustard is my friend when it comes to sausage. So I'm going to take regular old yellow mustard that you would put on your turkey sandwich or your ham sandwich. And we're going to put probably, I would say, 2 to 3 tablespoons of mustard into the custard mix. I'm just going to kind of eyeball that. 1, 2, 3. See, there's some singing from the singing chef. I'm happy, and I'm making, which cooking is my happy place for sure. Singing tends to just come out of my face sometimes, especially when something tastes good, you know, kind of back out of all right, let's see if I can get that all incorporated into the custard. Just keep whisking, just keep whisking, just keep whisking. Thanks, Dory, for the inspiration. All right, once you've got the mustard kind of incorporated into that cream and egg, your custard is pretty much done. And this sausage is looking pretty darn good too. 2 little pink bits, just a little look out. But that didn't really take a ton of time. We're getting there. All right. So like I said, this is only my second video so far, but I hope to do a lot more. Gonna try to release at least one a week with a different recipe of some sort. And I promise they won't all be breakfast. I will make some main courses and side dishes and even some salads that I love. Yes, I do eat healthy. Sometimes it's not all butter and cheese and Crisco. although those are things that are in my pantry at all times. Oh my goodness. All right, so our sausage is browned and at a good crumbled consistency. So what I'm gonna do, I had my trash bowl. I'm gonna set a colander. Get some stuff out of my way so I can do this safely. I'm gonna take that colander over my trash bowl and then just put all of the sausage meat into the colander. I'm trying to get rid of oil, basically, that's left residual in the pan from sauteing the sausage. And at this point, I can turn off my burner because the cooking part on the stovetop anyway is finished. And then I'm just going to let that sausage sit there for a while it drains into the bottom of the trash bowl. There's nothing in there that's going to harm the sausage. It's literally just pieces of onion and an eggshell or two, which is being protected from the sausage. All right, so sausage is draining. That's great. The other ingredient that goes into our giant mixing bowl that again has the hash browns as well as the onions, garlic, the dry mustard, salt, and pepper in it is shredded cheese. I'm going to use sharp cheddar because that's just what I prefer. You can use any shredded cheese you want, whether it's like a blend of Colby Jack or some other, if you want mild cheddar instead of sharp, whatever you prefer for a cheese is kind of up to you. As long as it's something that's going to melt decently, you should be okay. This is a pound bag or 4 cups. So I'm going to use at least a cup to a cup and a half, maybe, yeah. Let's say a cup and a half into that onion mixture with the hash browns. Then the last step, after the sausage has had a little bit of time to drain out the residual grease, which there wasn't a ton, but you're just trying to get all the oil out so that that doesn't bubble to the top of your casserole. Then you're going to toss all of that out of the colander into the giant mixing bowl. Oh my gosh, this already smells good. It's not even close to finished. All right, taking the spatula, and I'm just going to stir all of that goodness together. Potatoes and the sausage and the cheese, onions, garlic. Now, we've salted and peppered along the way with that mixture, so it shouldn't need a lot, but since everything in here is cooked, I can actually taste this to check for seasoning. So I'm going to do that just in case I need some more. Nah, that's good. Yeah. Okay. Now, last step. You need a baking dish. Some kind of 13 by 9 something. Doesn't really matter how deep it is, as long as it has, a decent side to it. A normal 13 by 9 baking dish. Reaching for some cooking spray. You just want to spray this down a little bit so that there's no chance of the casserole sticking. Now, meanwhile, while we've been doing all of this, I've been preheating my oven to 350. Check your oven to see how yours runs. Mine actually runs a little cold, so I'm actually running at 365, but 350 is the temp that should work just fine. And we're gonna bake this for between 40 and 50 minutes at that temperature. Okay, so I haven't forgotten about the custard, I promise. The first thing you need to do is get all of the sausage, cheese, and potato and onion mixture into your casserole dish, like so. Great. Then, because I tasted with my other spatula, I'm gonna be good and use this whisk to mush things around. You just want it flat, basically, into the casserole dish. Perfect. Get out of there. There we go. And then just for good measure, I'm gonna take the yellow mustard that we used earlier, and I'm just gonna do, because I love it, a quick drizzle. Not a ton, just a little. Now, the custard that we made with the cream and the 6 eggs and the yellow mustard and the dry mustard, salt, and pepper, that just gets poured all over the top. Oh my God, that's gorgeous. Thank you, Lord, for breakfast casserole. Yes! All right. And that is the makings of this breakfast casserole. Again, if you need to kind of zhuzh things around to make things flat in the pan, that's fine. Great. All right. All of that goes into our oven, which is at 350, or however yours relates to a 350-degree temperature. We're going to cook it again for 40 to 50 minutes. Now, like I said at the very beginning of this, if you want, and you want this for breakfast, you can get to this stage and stop. Cover it, put it in your fridge overnight. It actually makes it a little bit better if it sits and all those flavors have time to meld together before you even put it in the oven. We're going to put it in the oven. It's going to bake for about that 40-minute mark. Once you see that the custard is kind of set, you can go in and top it with a little bit more of that cheddar cheese. Either leave it on the same temperature, or sometimes if I feel like it's basically cooked and all I really want to do is melt and brown the top of that cheese, I'll crank on the broiler just to get that cheese a little bit browned on top. I hope you enjoyed this recipe. We're going to pop this in the oven, and I'll see you in a bit when it's finished. All right, guys, it's time. So right when the egg was set on this casserole, I took it out of the oven, I sprinkled some extra shredded cheddar on top of it, and I put it back in the oven, and I turned on the broiler. It only took a couple of minutes for that to really bubble up and sort of crispy brown this cheese that's on top. I took it out of the oven, and then I needed to let it rest, at least for like 5 minutes or so, or else it's just not gonna slice if you don't let it. It's still warm, that'll be perfectly fine. I wanna show you finished product. It's gonna be so good, can't wait. Okay, now, gonna take a spatula, cut out a little square. The first square is always the hardest, so it might not be so pretty, but we'll see how it goes. Oh, look at that! So good. Put this over here on my plate. That accidentally has a buttermilk biscuit on it, because that's how I roll. Yes, please. I'm going in. Going in. Oh my gosh, look at all that sausage and cheese. Yeah, so good. You've got to try this recipe. You might also want to try